This video is going to be different than other videos I've made in the sense that I'm not going to be editing this super heavily, except to chop up things that, you know, I'm struggling to say or kind of rambling on too much about. There's no B-roll in this, and this is not going to be like a fun, entertaining video. This is more of a me being honest about something that a lot of other people are being honest about on the internet, and I'm just kind of trying to say my part, I guess. There's something that I've dealt with for a very, very long time that I've never really talked to anybody about, aside from like literally two of my friends and my wife and my parents. I don't even think that I've talked to my brothers about this because of how embarrassed I am, or was. I guess less so now, but I used to be very embarrassed about this. So let me just back up a little bit. So I was on TikTok Live the other day. On TikTok, I have a lot of followers. YouTube, less so. But on TikTok, I've got like 200,000 followers. When I was on a TikTok Live one day, I had this one person who I'm going to keep completely anonymous, who was asking me about life in Japan, because I grew up in Japan. And I was telling them about all these different things. They were asking me a lot of questions about, you know, what it was like, what was the food like, what was your favorite things to do there, would you recommend it, blah, blah, blah. And then before they left the live, they said, I wish I could go to Japan. It's one of the places that I've always wanted to go to. I speak Japanese. My friend is Japanese. I love Japanese food. I would love to go visit one day, but I have anxiety. And I think that that would stop me from going to Japan because it stops me from doing a lot of stuff in my daily life. And there's no way I could do something as big as go to a foreign country that far away. And that hit me really, really hard. So as you can probably tell based on that story, the thing that I've been struggling with for a very long time is anxiety. For me, it's specifically a panic attack disorder that I was diagnosed with when I was like 11 or 12 years old. But I've been dealing with this since I was about 9 or 10. So for no joke, like 2/3 of my life, over 20 years, I've been dealing with panic attacks and just generalized anxiety. So let's dive way back to when I was 9 years old and had my very first panic attack. I remember I was walking into the parking lot from like a Walmart or something like that with my parents. And on the way to the car, I just felt this overwhelming feeling of like something being wrong. I couldn't tell what it was, but something felt very, very wrong, and I started to get scared. My heart was pounding. I was disoriented. I was confused. I felt like I was gonna die. Like, I don't know why. I was 9 years old, and I remember thinking like, something's not right. Like, maybe I'm having a heart attack? Am I having like a seizure or something? Like, I didn't even have the vocabulary to express how I was feeling, but I just felt very, very not good. And that was the very first time I ever felt anything like that before, and I didn't know what to do or how to express it. So afterwards, when I felt okay, I kind of just chalked it up to, I don't know what it was, but it scared the crap out of me. And I was like, wow, I really hope I never feel like that again. But how wrong I was with that wish, because I started to feel like that over and over and over again for years and years and years, sometimes once a week, sometimes every day, sometimes a couple times a day for years. That exact same feeling of like literally feeling like my life was about to end, I would feel over and over and over again. And even though I never did die, like I never died one time when I felt this way, it never stopped happening. Every single time I would feel this way, I felt like I was going to die. And these feelings of like feeling like I was going to die and feeling like something was very, very, very wrong just never went away. It continued to happen for a very long time, and I didn't tell anybody. I kept it very, very secret. I was ashamed by it. I was embarrassed by it. I was scared of it. I was worried that if I did tell somebody that they were going to lock me up because I was crazy, or I was going to find out that I had a brain tumor, or like I had something wrong with me. So I just kept it a secret for a very long time. And you know, I actually opened up about this a little bit to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. And I had never really talked to anybody about this except to my parents and to my wife and to one other person. And when I was expressing to him like what it felt like and what was going on when I was in high school and middle school and even today, he had trouble understanding because he had never had a panic attack before. So he didn't know what it felt like. He didn't understand what it meant or what it did to you. So I'm going to explain what it feels like for me when I have anxiety leading up to a panic attack, like all the feelings up to a panic attack, and like what it feels like when I'm actually having a full-blown panic attack, just so that anybody that's watching or listening who's never experienced one before will be able to maybe kind of understand it a little bit, or maybe have had one and didn't realize that it was a panic attack before. So yeah, this is what happens for me personally. I think that a lot of people can probably feel similar and relate to a lot of this, and other people might not be able to relate to it as much, but yeah, this is just what happens for me. So for me, it starts with either a feeling or a thought of some sort. Usually that thought is a very negative thought. I mean, it could be, now what the thoughts are basically like reminding myself of times that I've had a panic attack in whatever situation I'm in currently, like I'll start having flashbacks to feelings that I had in the same situation that I'm in currently, or times that I've had a full-blown panic attack and there were certain elements of things that like reminded me of that, I guess. So maybe I'm at a skate park or something like that, and I'm remembering a time that I had a panic attack at that exact same skate park or at a similar skate park. Or maybe there's a music playing, and like that song was playing one time at a party when I had a panic attack. Like anything can really set this stuff off. I start to think about, oh my gosh, you're going to have a panic attack. And then I start to push that thought away. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm cool. And then my thought comes in even harder. And it's like, no, you're about to have a panic attack. You are totally going to freak out right now. And it just keeps happening until I work myself up to actually having one. And it's a really hard thing to stop when the thoughts start it, But it's not always thoughts that start it. For me, sometimes it can be a physical feeling. I could have a feeling of something that reminds me of being jittery or anxious or uncomfortable or feeling like I'm out of control in some way. And that reminds me of feelings that I have when I'm having a panic attack or when I'm anxious. And it starts the whole cycle thing rolling again. So that could be feeling dizzy. That could be feeling disoriented. That could be feeling out of breath, feeling like my heart's pounding a little bit too hard. There's a lot of different things that can lead up to me being anxious and then in turn lead up to a panic attack. But let's talk about what the actual feelings of having a panic attack are. So like I said, could be a thought or a physical feeling that causes me to think that I'm going to have a panic attack or causes me to just be anxious and jittery to begin with. But what I start to feel physically is an unease, like a feeling of like something bad about to happen, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. Almost like the calm before a storm, the silence before tornado sirens go off. Like I start to feel jittery, my hands might shake a little bit, I'll start to get sweaty palms, I will start to slur my speech, I'll start to speak a lot faster, I will have pain in my back, I'll have pain in my chest, I'll start to breathe and not feel like I'm getting enough oxygen, so I'll start to breathe deeper and faster and start to eventually hyperventilate because I feel like no matter how much I breathe, I can't get enough oxygen. I'll start to feel dizzy, disoriented. Lights will start to bother me. I'll have like some light sensitivity. I want to like squint my eyes or close my eyes. All the sounds that are going on around me will seem really overwhelming and really, really loud. I'll be able to taste everything. Like I'll taste every smell in the air. I feel like I can taste it. Every smell ever that's like around me, I can smell everything at the same time too. And then my sense of touch gets really, really hypersensitive. So I feel cold and I feel hot and I feel myself sweating and I feel myself shaking. And it's basically like every sense that I have is firing off really, really rapidly and really strongly. And it's extremely overwhelming. And at the same time, I feel completely numb. Like I feel like if I touch my face during that, it almost makes me feel like my face is numb, like I can't feel it. The feeling of being numb, but also feeling everything all at once is extremely disorienting and extremely uncomfortable. It'll even go as far as to me like stuttering and slurring my speech and having depth perception issues, like going to reach for something and knocking it over because I didn't realize how far away it was from me. And then I start to have the thoughts and the feelings like in my own head that make everything worse. And those feelings are like, I guess, a feeling of impending doom, like something really bad is about to happen and I can't stop it from happening. The feeling of thinking that I'm going to die based on all these physical feelings I'm having. My heart's racing, I'm dizzy, I'm disoriented, I feel like I can't breathe enough, my blood pressure is just skyrocketing, I'm sweating, I'm shaking, I'm dizzy, I'm confused. And I'm like, oh yeah, this time I'm going to die. Like I know I didn't die any of the other times. I made it through every other panic attack, but for whatever reason, I know deep down, this time I'm out. Like they're going to have to call an ambulance. I'm going to die. I don't want to go in the ambulance because it's not going to make me feel better. I just need to get out of this situation right now because if I don't leave this situation, I'm going to die. When those thoughts and feelings physically get so overwhelming, the only thing I've been able to do is just like leave. I have to leave whatever situation I'm in. And that can be pretty sucky. I don't really have a better word for it. It can be very frustrating to have to leave situations that I wanted to be in just because I couldn't control my anxiety, and it got the better of me, and it went to almost a full-blown panic attack. So in order to stop it from being a full-blown panic attack, I get this fight or flight response towards the end of this stuff where I just need to either power through it and just like have it happen in front of everybody and be embarrassed or ashamed, or run away. And I choose to run away all the time. So that's just the idea of what it's like leading up to a panic attack for me personally. No, notice I said leading up to a panic attack. All those feelings, that entire experience right there is just anxiety. Like that's just the anxiety leading up to a full-blown panic attack for me. For me, a full-blown panic attack is worse than everything I've already expressed. So what I've expressed is, again, it's the lead up to it where it hits a certain point and it like goes beyond and climaxes. Like it gets so much worse and it plateaus for a long time before it comes down. So here is where I'm going to explain what happens when I can't get out of situations that make me anxious and I do end up having a full-blown panic attack. So when I've peaked and those thoughts and physical feelings are at their maximum and I can't bring them down anymore, I'm so disoriented that like I might have trouble remembering where I'm at and what I'm doing. I might not be able to get to my car if I'm parked in a parking lot and I'm like having trouble remembering where I parked just because everything's firing off at the same time, and like it's so overwhelming and so disorienting that I can't focus on one thing. If I'm already at a full-blown panic attack, it could take anywhere from an hour to 8 hours for me to calm down and feel like normal again. It's really frustrating. You know, my chest is throbbing, my head is hurting, I'm super dizzy, my mouth is dry, I can't eat anything because when I try to eat, my mouth feels numb and I can't taste anything. So when I try to swallow, sometimes I've choked on food before just because I'm so worked up and so confused and disoriented that I just can't function, like even to eat food at all. You know, if I see another way to exit wherever I'm at that's faster, that might be like less convenient as far as like more dangerous or more out of the way or more just like weird, I might just do that instead. You know, if I'm in a store and I start to have a panic attack, I might drop everything in my cart and like literally sprint out of the store. Like absolute sprint out of the store to where security people are like, oh wait, did that guy just steal something? And if they yelled at me to stop, I would completely ignore them. They can't catch me. I'm out of here. My adrenaline's at 1,000%. I'm gone. So when I'm already at this point, it's like nothing else matters but trying to get myself out of the situation because like I said before, my brain keeps telling me I'm going to die. And no matter how many times I'm in this situation before, no matter how many times that I know that I'm not going to die, my brain is already so overloaded with everything else that that's all that it can focus on, is that you're gonna die. You're like having an out-of-body experience right now. You can't feel anything, but you feel everything right now. Something's really wrong and you need to leave. So that's what it's like when I'm in a full-blown panic attack. And then I have the come down from a panic attack, you know? Like I said before, it could be an hour, it could be 8 hours it takes me to feel normal. And during that time, it's almost like I'm high. Like I'm so disoriented. I'm exhausted because my body feels like I ran a marathon. My brain feels like I just took like an 8-hour long trigonometry test. Like I'm so just out of it and so drained that I can't function. So my eyes will be like halfway open, halfway closed. I can't focus on anything. I'm really, really hungry. My blood sugar's probably really low because I just felt like I ran a whole marathon, you know. But I can't eat and I can't function very well. My back is probably hurting. I'm probably just so like shutting down. It's basically like my brain is shutting down and my body's shutting down, but it's not there yet. And I keep having like these like jerks where it's like I start to like almost pass out or fall asleep and my body like jerks me back up and it's like, no, don't do that. This is bad. And that feeling will just go on for a long time. Now, when I'm having that come down off of like having a full blown panic attack where I'm like disoriented, almost like I'm stoned or something like that, my brain has like stopped the thought process. Like my brain is so done that I'm not really thinking about anything and I'm just kind of like zoned out and disoriented and confused. And my body is so sore and disoriented that it's almost like I have like a disassociation. Like I'm so out of it that I'm pretty much not present all the way. Now, all that being said, it's not debilitating. Like I can still do stuff when I'm having a panic attack, when I'm having anxiety, and after, when I'm like coming down from it. But it's so much harder for me to function that for all intents and purposes, most of the time when I'm having really bad anxiety or a panic attack, I cannot handle anything. I can't do anything. And it really can be, I guess, sucky. I really don't have another word for it. It really, really sucks. Okay, so that is what having anxiety and having a panic attack is like for me personally. So now that I've explained that, let's hop back to when I was like 9 or 10 years old. So I had my first panic attack, and then I started having more, and then I started having more, and then they were regular, and they kind of just never went away. I had a really hard time hiding it from anybody, but I would make up a lot of excuses. I would say that I was sick. I spent a lot of time in the nurse's office when I was in middle school. And eventually one day my mom noticed something was wrong, and I couldn't shake it. Like, I couldn't hide what was wrong, and I had a really hard time like faking it. So I ended up telling her that something was wrong with me, but I wasn't sure what it was. So she took me to the doctor. They did blood tests, they did blood sugar tests, like glucose tests and stuff like that to see if I had diabetes. They tested me for like seizures and things like that. Everything came back negative. I was perfectly physically healthy, which made me feel even worse, because the worst thing that I thought it could be was that I had some sort of like schizophrenia or like some sort of like major mental illness, and I was going to go crazy. They were going to lock me up. And the fact that I was physically healthy meant that it wasn't a tumor. It meant that it wasn't anything that was out of my control. It meant that it was all in my head, which I thought at the time was my fault, and that I couldn't have something go on in my head without being crazy and be looked at like I was like insane. So eventually I get put into a counselor, which is like, it was just some sort of like family counselor, and they diagnosed me with a generalized panic attack disorder, which basically meant that I would have panic attacks that could be brought on by a plethora of different things, and there was no really rhyme or reason for it. Now, this counselor chalked everything up to adolescence and hormones and puberty. They said, when you get older, this stuff will probably be more regulated, and it will pretty much go away by the time you're 20 or so, which, by the way, was not true, but it's not their fault. It's just how it happened with me. And just as I got older, it just kept happening, and it was very frustrating, especially in high school. You know, I was living in Japan. I grew up in Japan, actually, and I had all these fantastic experiences growing up in middle school and high school and afterwards in Japan. And a lot of those experiences were overshadowed by the fact that I had such bad anxiety that I had to fake things. You know, I had to lie to my friends about why I couldn't do something, or why I had to leave early doing something, just because I was having anxiety really bad. And, you know, it would happen when I was at the skate park. It would happen when I was at school. It would happen when I was at a friend's house. It would happen when I was in my bedroom. It didn't really matter. You know, I could be on the beach enjoying my time with friends, and then all of a sudden have anxiety come up and feel like I have a panic attack coming, and have to fake a phone call with my mom and pretend to be arguing with my mom, saying, "No, Mom, I don't want to come home," and then blame everything on my parents and say, "Hey guys, my mom and dad are being jerks right now. They want me to come home. I gotta go." And in reality, you know, I'm just holding back my breath and trying not to hyperventilate in front of them. And as soon as I walk away and they don't see me anymore, I'm like, and like run all the way home because I'm about to freak out. I did that for a very long time, and I never told even my best friends. So I've only really talked about this with, like, seriously talked about this with like two of my friends. One is my best friend in the whole world, and I've known him for a very, very long time. He was actually one of my first friends when I moved to Japan. And I mentioned this to him, and he told me, "Yeah, I knew that you had anxiety, or knew you had something going on, because like we've been together for so long, but I figured if you wanted to tell me, you would, and you never told me, so I figured you didn't want to say anything, so I just didn't say anything about it." Which made me feel great, but also like made me feel like an idiot. Like, I should have known that I could have trusted my best friend with stuff like this, but I didn't. So I spent 20 plus years just like not saying anything to anybody, and being very ashamed about it, and very like feeling like an outcast all the time, even though I was popular, even though I had a lot of friends. I just felt like on the outskirts of everything, because I felt like I was different than everybody else. As I've gotten older, I've kind of realized that there's a lot of things people struggle with that you can't see, and it's not really anything to be ashamed about, you know? However, when I was growing up, it's kind of a different time. I'm only 29, so I'm not that old. I'm really not old at all. But a lot of my followers on TikTok and on YouTube are younger, you know, 16, 14, 13 to 18, 19, 20. And the difference between how I grew up and how a lot of my peers grew up and people that are younger is that mental illness stuff was not something that you talked about when I was growing up. You know, 2006, 2007, like pre-2010, everybody was just labeled as ADD, ADHD, or depressed. You know, that was kind of it. And they threw Xanax or Ritalin at you, and that was pretty much it. And if somebody found out that you had anxiety or depression or something like that, you could possibly just get made fun of. You know, people were not as supportive as they are today. People were less understanding of what was going on. And I think we were just starting to scratch the surface on like how to treat mental illness and, you know, how to help people that had it. So when I was growing up, it was something that you didn't talk about. And I felt very strongly that I shouldn't talk about it, and I was embarrassed, so I just didn't. And now I really regret that. I wish I was more open with it, especially to my friends after, 20 years talking to them later on, and they tell me like, yeah, totally knew about it. If you just told me, we could have talked about it, but I didn't want to push it. So kind of like kicking myself for that. High school was a hard time for me, even though it was like one of the best years of my life, or some of the best years of my life. I was popular. I had a lot of friends. Everybody pretty much knew me. I was very free. I could do a lot of stuff in Japan that I would not be able to do in the United States. But at the same time, I struggled so bad with anxiety that I almost failed high school. I had a hard time, paying attention in class. And it wasn't really so much that I had a hard time learning anything because, I speak Japanese fluently. I learned it in about 2 years. I'm really smart, and it's really easy for me to learn new topics. It's really easy for me to teach myself things and self-study on a lot of stuff. But it was really hard for me in high school to sit down in a classroom and listen to a teacher talk when I was having really bad anxiety, because the only thing I could think about was getting out of that uncomfortable situation, which I couldn't do until school was over with. And then after school, I went over to Japanese cram school called Kumon, and I had to study there to help me with Japanese and things like that. And that was really hard to do also. So going into my senior year, I had the equivalent of like a 1.9 GPA, which was not enough for me to graduate high school. So I had to hit the books really hard, and I ended up graduating from an online high school based out of Montana in the United States. So I was in Japan, but I graduated from a school in Montana online because I just literally could not graduate with my GPA that I had. So yeah, anxiety really hit me hard when I was a teenager. And then I became an adult, and it seemed to hit me a lot less hard. And I tricked myself into thinking that my anxiety was better as an adult because I could navigate life differently and avoid things that made me anxious that I was unable to avoid as a kid. When I was a kid and my mom's like, hey, come to the store with me, I had to go to the store with her. I didn't really have a choice in it. I had to go. Even if it was somewhere that made me anxious, I would have to go. And I would have to just deal with my anxiety or have a full-blown panic attack. But as an adult, I could avoid stuff like that. If this place made me anxious, I would go to this place. And if this place started to make me anxious, I would go to this place. So I was constantly like giving myself loopholes and giving myself ways out so that I didn't have to deal with anything. And I tricked myself into thinking that my anxiety was under control because of that, because I was having fewer anxiety attacks. And that went on from like the time I was like 18, living on my own in Japan, until I was 28, 29 today, I thought everything was doing a lot better until winter of last year. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details about this because it's just not really worth it. But basically, I was doing really, really well in all aspects of life, really. I had started a company with my brother. We were doing photos and videos for people. We had just done a video for Chick-fil-A. We did a lot of cool stuff, and I was really excited about that. I was in the best shape physically that I'd ever been in my entire life. I was riding a bike like 20 to 30 miles a day, lifting weights every single day, but like 1 day a week. I was eating more healthy. I had dropped a bunch of weight. I'd packed on a ton of muscle. I felt super, super clear. I felt like, the world was at my fingertips. And then I had a full-blown panic attack in front of my wife's friends at a Jungle Gyms in Cincinnati. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was something that I hadn't experienced in a really long time, and it set me back a lot. Because then it was like, I thought, oh, this has to be a one-off. Like it must have just been a fluke that happened. But then I would start to get anxious in situations I hadn't been anxious in for a very long time. And then I had another panic attack. And then I had really bad anxiety. And then I didn't ride my bike so much because every time I got on my bike and started riding, I would start to feel anxious and uncomfortable and then pedal my way back home as fast as I possibly could. And then it just kind of like got worse and worse and worse. It was like I was on a slippery slope and I was sliding down at 50 miles an hour and couldn't stop myself at all. And then finally, I kind of skidded to a halt down really, really far when my son was born. And ever since he was born, it was like my anxiety never went away, but it was kind of like less important. My son is more important than my anxiety. So if he needs something, I'd get it done, regardless of how anxious I am, regardless of how I feel. And that's been making me feel better because I'm pushing myself to do things that I normally wouldn't have done, if it had just been me. But because I have my son, I have to do these things sometimes. So it really sucks right now. I'm back a lot from what I used to be because of my anxiety, because of me thinking that I had a grip on it when really I was just kind of like hiding it, and hiding it from myself, I guess. So when this TikTok user told me that their anxiety was most likely going to stop them from doing the thing that they wanted to do most, which was visit Japan one day, I felt that on very many levels, because anxiety for me has shaped everything that I've done for the past 20 years. It's shaped who I hung out with. It's shaped where I went. It's shaped how I went there. It's shaped when I went there, how long I stayed there, what I did, what I ate, who I was with 24/7. I mean, just for the longest time, that's all that's controlled me. Like I said, having my son has definitely pushed me to do this stuff more, but it's a long process, and it's something that I have hidden for a long time, and I was not open with anybody about it. So when this person commented on my live and was so like open about like, yeah, I've got this thing and it sucks, I was taken aback for a second. I was like, how are you talking about that in public and like so openly, you know? Like, isn't that something you should be ashamed about? And I wasn't like angry at them for saying it. I wasn't like saying that they should be ashamed. I was saying like, aren't you? Like, because I am, but you're not. Shouldn't you be? Like, I'm confused. Like, I feel very ashamed by this. And, you know, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, why? Why be ashamed about something that you don't have any control over? It's something that a lot of people deal with. People that you wouldn't expect to deal with it. I know when I make this video, a lot of people that I know personally and probably just through the internet are probably going to be like, oh, I had no idea. I didn't know that you dealt with that. And I do. And, you know, I had a short conversation with somebody I went to high school with not too long ago, and I mentioned that to him. And it was like one of the first times I just like mentioned it to somebody. And he's like, I had absolutely no idea. I had no clue that you were struggling with that at all. But it's cool that you said that, just because everybody struggles with stuff. So shout out. What's up, dude? I know you know who you are, because we had that short conversation about it. But yeah, it's something that I've never really talked about. So I figured I would make this video. And I wanted to make this video for a long time, but I didn't, because again, I was ashamed about it. I was embarrassed by it, and I just got busy. So I never ended up making it. So figured I might as well just sit down and say it. But I'm going to wrap this video up by saying this. This person on my TikTok, maybe you're watching this, maybe you're not. Or maybe you're somebody that's dealing with anxiety and you want to go do stuff, but your anxiety is stopping you from doing it, right? Like it has me and has a lot of other people. It's stopped us from doing a lot of stuff. Here's what I'm going to say. You're going to be anxious, right? Most likely you're going to be anxious. You're going to be anxious in the situation that you're in now. You're going to be anxious in the future. You're going to be anxious no matter what. So why not be anxious doing the thing that you want to do rather than being anxious not doing the thing that you want to do? You know what I mean? Like, you could have a panic attack at your own house. Why not have a panic attack in Tokyo? That'd be a way cooler story, and you'd be doing something that you want to do. And when you get back from Tokyo, you'd realize, wow, I just did this huge thing that I never thought I could accomplish. You know, when I was 16, I flew across the world by myself 2 times. Completely alone, in the midst of me having really bad anxiety and panic attacks. Now, I had multiple panic attacks in airports and on airplanes, but I still did it. When I was 17, I flew to Taiwan for a week. And guess what? I got lost, and I didn't speak Chinese very well, and I couldn't find my hotel, and I lost my cell phone. And I had panic attacks, and I was terrified, and it was very uncomfortable, but I did it. When I was 18, my parents moved back to the United States, and I lived in Japan on my own. And I had anxiety and I had panic attacks the entire time, and they weren't there to help out with it. But you know what? I did it. We do stuff, whether you have anxiety or not, you know? So you might as well do the thing you want to do than not do the thing you want to do, because you're going to be anxious either way. Be anxious in Tokyo. Don't be anxious in your hometown. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm not going to make other videos like this. This is the only video I'm going to make in regards to this topic, or like this, where I'm talking about something super personal, just because it's not something I'm comfortable doing, and it's not something that I think a whole lot of people really care too much about. So this video is more so for the person on TikTok who I know is also subscribed to me, and also for me, because it's something that I just need to get over and talk about for a second, and at least putting it on the internet maybe will make me feel like I talked about it instead of just hiding it all the time. So thanks for watching. Have a great week. And yeah, see you in the next video.